peace. What's up? I hope everybody's having a wonderful morning. I'm just on here today because it's just some morning thoughts. I haven't done these in a while. Remember, I had a whole Car Chronicles series because I was driving to work every morning and I would just share my thoughts that I'm having in the morning, especially when I was meditating and stuff. Well, this week I've been without my children, so I've been able to meditate and be with myself the way that I typically am before going out into the world. And this morning, this week, first of all, has been a little rough. Emotionally, spiritually, it's been a rough week. A lot of things that I thought I had gotten over, a lot of things that I thought no longer affected me came back up, and it showed its effect within me. And a lot of my inner child stuff, my inner child really needed to be loved on and appreciated and recognized this week. So all of that was happening, and it required me to let go a lot. And letting go means, for me, throwing out all of the things that I have accumulated since college, since high school. Because growing up, I was taught that you should keep record, you should accumulate, you should keep all your stuff as you move along, especially when you're always moving. So in that, I've literally accumulated a whole bunch of stuff, even though I've actually gotten rid of a lot because I've had to move and the big shifts I've had in my life. But I've accumulated a lot of stuff that just sits in corners. It just sits in closets. It just sits. It has no use, no need. It might be a memory, or it just might be junk taking up space. And this week, I actually had to address it. Shout out to my mom and Dira. They kept the children and they kept keeping them. And then I was gonna drive up and go get them. And then I just kind of heard and I felt, no, it is time for you to address this stuff. So I addressed this stuff this week. And wild enough for me, man, when I looked at some of my notebooks, I cried. I cried. I literally started bawling, crying at the thought of throwing some things away. And I said, oh my God. And it just came. It was just intense. It just came. And I said, wow, I hold this stuff as my worth. Like, I hold this stuff as worthy of me. I'll be right back. I got to run to the post office. All right, we back. So like I said, I went to this certain stuff to begin to throw it out, and I just started bawling, crying. I was just crying at the thought. I didn't even touch it. I just thought, okay, I gotta throw this out. And I started bawling, crying. And I was like, what is this? And I had to just sit with the fact that I'm holding on to these things. I'm holding on to my records from the nation. I'm holding on to my records from college. I'm holding on to my notes and school projects from high school because, and mind you, the artistic ones, that ain't being thrown out because your girl an artist, okay? There's certain things that I'm keeping. I'm not throwing everything out. But the notes from my AP psychology class, I could throw that out. The notes from my college classes, I can throw that out. But it was very hard for me to do that. The notes from my MGT classes, I can throw that out. But it was hard for me to do that because I held those notes as my worth. And I'm crying and I'm like realizing this is how deeply invested I was in these identities as a high school student, as an MGT, as a Vanguard, as a college student, as a Rutgers University graduate, as a teacher in my teaching notes. Like, I was heavily invested in these identities to the point where holding on to the notes from them means something to me. So I'm not investing in myself, just me as I am, as my identity, as my worth. And granted, for the past 2 years, I've been working heavily on myself. So the idea of worthlessness is something that I was aware was functioning in my life. But to see the actual mechanisms, that's what I've been experiencing in these past few months. Seeing the actual mechanisms that I think are normal, and how they're not normal, and they're really just ideas and the habits of worthlessness, of the idea that, Tia, you are worthless unless you hold on to these things. You are worthless unless you're attached to this group. You are worthless unless you are subjugated under this certain ideology. Tia, you are worthless. And that went down to just letting the notes sit in the corner of somewhere, in the closet of somewhere, dragging them along. I've moved several times and I've dragged these things along that literally serve no purpose, because what is worthy serves a purpose. And me, as me, I serve the purpose of being me. We are each placed here on this planet to be ourselves. That is our purpose. There's no career, there's no money, there's no thought, there's no religion, there's no graduation, there's nothing, no certification that can qualify the truth of who we are. We are souls, spirit, sent here to literally be ourselves. But that's not how I was holding myself. I was holding myself as worthy because. And it's funny how things are developing for me to just be more aware of the habits that I don't even know I have that increase the energy of worthlessness around my area. So I'm getting rid of that. Getting rid of it. And it hurts. I feel like I'm going to lose. I feel like I'm going to be empty. I feel like I'm going to have nothing. But one thing that I've recognized with all the stories in the Bible and all the stories in the Quran and all the stories I've heard from the elders and all the stories I've heard from successful people that we judge is that in the moments where they had nothing, they recognized everything. In the moments when we have nothing, in the moments when we let go of everything that we think gives us our worth and value and that we think builds us up, is the moment that we can receive the truth of who we are, which is abundant. And this is what came into my head while I was doing this. Abundance is not accumulation. Abundance is not accumulation. Abundance is not accumulation. I'm saying it like that because that's how it was said to me. Abundance is not accumulation. Repeatedly, it's not accumulation. Abundance is openness. Abundance is expansion. Abundance is faith. Abundance is authenticity. That's abundance. Abundance is not accumulation. And the Quran, I don't know the specific verse and I don't know the specific words, but I know that in the Quran and the Bible, there's the mention that a rich man cannot take his riches with him after he dies. A rich man cannot take his riches with him after he dies. A rich man cannot take his children with him after he dies. That all we have in this life and the next is us. And that is our worth. And that is our value. So, yeah, this developed. But that's what I wanted to share, because that was a very emotional experience. I wanted to be vulnerable and just share this piece. And for the mommies out there, happy Mother's Day. But it is absolutely critical. I was speaking with a friend about this, and I've been telling her for a long time. It is absolutely critical for us mommies to get some alone time, because we harbor and we have so much in us. We have so much about us. We have so much, but we don't really get to tap into the gold and the diamond and the worth that we are within ourselves, because we're just innately so focused on raising our babies, which is wonderful and which is great. And use your village. I don't care if you don't live near them, because I get it. I'm the same way. In my head, a village should be, we right here, we live in the same neighborhood. I can let the children play in the street, and they're going to be across from their cousins and they family and my friends. But that's not the reality that I'm living in right now. What I do know is I got my dad at home with me. I got my mom that lives a couple hours away. I got some cousins that live couples hours away. I got what I do know is I have a village. What I do know. And use the village that you have. No matter how far they are, no matter where they're at, ask for the support that you need. Even if the village is going to the library and getting connected with a new resource center who can hold your children. Even because daycare, now look, God, If daycare can happen for me, please. But I don't know how to afford that in this moment. But like I said, ask and you shall receive. Abundance is not accumulation. So please show me the way towards the daycare. But daycare prices are insane. But us as mothers, not for work, just to be with ourselves, we deserve that alone time. So I pray that all the mothers, this Mother's Day, especially us who are raising young children, get the opportunity to just be with ourselves, even if for a little bit, because we deserve to see the divine essence that we are. We deserve to see how freaking amazing we are, just as ourselves. Even if that means we got to get rid of the things that we thought made us qualified and we thought made us worthy of anything. So I love you all. Thank you for listening. This is my message. And yeah, here's my message. Peace. Love y'all.